Hey everybody, Level Engine here, doing something he has not done in a while. I still play Magic the Gathering, Commander to be specific, even more specific, Duel Commander, the French variant made specially for 1 versus 1 Commander, because it's honestly a lot easier to find one opponent than say 2 or 3. I really wanted to put the deck list up on YouTube as soon as possible, because the next ban list update for Duel Commander is going to come like the Monday of the week that the new set is going to land. So this upcoming Monday, we're going to see what the changes of the ban list are. And I want to talk about this guy some more. I want to talk about specifically why he may get banned next update, which is going to be like in the next few days. So this is going to be like a video on my Leovold Emissary of Trest EDH deck. This is like what it is right now. I recently took this to a, well actually they didn't have Duel Commander, not enough people showed up that wanted to play it. So here's the commander I brought with me to that store. Leovold Emissary of Trest. This is a 3/3 that has 3 colors. He is black, green, and blue. Okay, I don't think I should be saying this. You can see the card. And even like the first line of text that says each opponent can't draw more than 1 card per turn, that right there is already game warping if you use it in the right way. I'm going to go on about that as I reveal more cards in the deck. And also, whenever one of your permanents or yourself gets targeted by one of your opponent's spells or abilities, you get to draw a card if you remember to do so. So essentially, in a nutshell, this guy is pure card advantage, kind of like the other elf of Trest from Paliano, Edric. Well, you're going to see him in this deck list too, because like in 1v1 he's just ridiculously good. Okay, now I'm going to go through the creatures. And right now you're going to see all the mana dorks, like Llanowar Elves. So typically, since Leovold costs 3 mana, what I usually want to do is play a land that can produce like green and another color untapped to play, say, the Llanowar Elves, and then play a second land that comes in untapped. And if everything goes right, I can produce all 3 colors on the second turn and play Leovold on turn 2. I think I have like 8 of these kinds of cards in here that could let me do that. And there's of course a functional reprint of Llanowar Elves, Fyndhorn Elves. Does the exact same thing as the other card I just showed you. Another one of those, Elvish Mystic, because Wizards, when they reprinted this, they just wanted it to be one singular elf. Now you got a whole new card for it. And yet another way to get Leovold out turn 2. Or any of the other 3 CMC generals. Arbor Elf, untap target forest. Elves of Deep Shadow, make 1 black and you take 1 damage. Birds of Paradise, probably one of the only ones you might see in like multiplayer. But yeah, this one's even better than the others that I showed you, but yeah, it does nearly the identical thing, except this one makes 1 mana of any color, so if you get this, it'll be even easier to get a turn 2 Leovold. Deathrite Shaman. I mean, this is a really interesting card. You will need to have a land card in your graveyard by the first turn if you want to use him for a turn 2 Leovold, but that's easily doable because I run the fetch lands. If you run the fetch lands, you could probably easily get a land in the yard to go in exile to get 1 mana of any color, and then just use him as like one of the 1-drops that makes a mana, and then turn 2 land you can play, like, get 3 mana on turn 2. This one doesn't exactly do the same thing, but still serves a really good purpose. This one elf, you could easily on turn 2 just make it a level 1, and even the same turn that you level it up to level 1, you can tap it for 2 green. So let's say you play your second land on turn 2, you tap your lands down to level this guy up, and then you can tap him on the turn 2 to make 2 green, and if you have something to play with the 2 green mana, you can still do it. Okay, now we're getting out of mana dork territory. Now it's just going to be like good creatures. Like Scavenging Ooze. Not much else to say here besides this thing is really good against graveyard-based strategies, as it can just easily exile any number of cards that it wants. Well, maybe not any number, but it can easily exile a lot of cards from graveyards. And it's also a good way to gain some extra life if you're running low and just make the thing bigger. This 2 mana thing can grow huge. Reclamation Sage. Really straightforward. Just destroy target artifact or enchantment. I mean, this card does appear in a lot of Duel Commander deck lists. I guess we all just like the idea of having destroy target artifact or enchantment staple to a 2/1. It's really worth it. Similarly, we have Eternal Witness. When you play her, you can get any card out of your graveyard back. Not much else to say here. Courser of Kruphix. I mean, I only recently got this card and started running it in this deck, but I still like having the thing around. It's not one of my best cards, but it's still pretty nice. I mean, I'm getting a 2/4 for 3 mana, so I'm getting a really good body for my mana cost. I mean, it's extra life also, but it can also give you like a bit of card advantage, not as much as the next card I'm going to show you when it comes to like just getting rid of excess lands off your library. But this guy, Oracle Mul Daya, just does it even better. Okay, it costs 4 mana. It's kind of a stretch, but it's really worth it what you're going to get out of it. You can now play 2 lands per turn instead of 1. You can play lands off the top of your library. So if you have like 2 lands on the top of your library back to back, you can just play those off your library, and then you won't have to draw them like next turn or the turn after that. So there's like reasons that you want this guy in your deck. Or any sort of dual commander deck, or any commander deck period that has green in it. Whisperwood Elemental. I mean, if you leave this guy unchecked, he is just going to swarm the board with all those manifests. Every turn, you get to take the top card off your library and put it face down as a 2/2 creature. As an added bonus, you could flip the thing up for its mana cost anytime if it's a creature card. I mean, if there's anything you'd want to flip anyway. I mean, if I got one of my mana dorks face down, then I'm not going to want to do so. Like, I wouldn't want to turn my 2/2 into a 1/1. Unless I really that badly needed mana, but if I have 5 mana already, then it's probably not going to be like a concern. Yes, I want to just clear out that this is a dual commander, French ban list deck, because this guy right here is clearly banned in multiplayer commander. Just look at mtgcommander.net and look at their ban list. This guy's on it, but he's not on the French one, so yeah. I was actually contemplating getting rid of him because he's 6 mana, but nah. As soon as if he just so much as lands, you already get to take 2 lands out of your deck, any 2, and just put them on the battlefield. Unfortunately, they come in tapped, but this is 2 less cards you'll have to worry running into. Like, say, if you got already a lot of lands on the battlefield. So, really. The main reason I'm still keeping this guy is because he already does something huge for you, even if he just so much as lands. Even if they have a response to kill him as soon as he does enter the battlefield, his trigger will still be on the stack, and you'll still get to get 2 lands. They just have to counter the spell, and then you won't get anything. Otherwise, like, you're getting some lands. And if he survives another turn to attack, another 2, and so on and so forth. Phantasmal Image. When you just want to copy a creature for only 2 mana, because, trust me, you'll want to do things for as little mana as possible in this format. In a much faster format like Dual Commander, you're probably going to want most of your spells to say cost 3 or less mana. That's kind of a theme with this deck and quite a lot of other Dual Commander deck lists if you go and look at them on, say, MTG Top 8 and Commander. Most of the spells will probably cost 3 converted mana cost or less. Well, there are going to be some exceptions. I'm sure there are decks that, like, have a way to just make the spells cost less or just cast a bunch of them for free, so obviously they're going to run bigger spells. So this is pretty much a clone that lets you copy any creature on the field, with the added downside of it, if it gets targeted by a spell or ability, you have to sacrifice it. Even if the spell or ability doesn't resolve, even if you can counter it, like, don't bother, because it's still going to kill the thing. Here's just some quality Snapcaster Mage. Considering how flexible this guy is, well, if you're, like, far enough into the game to have a lot of good choices to flash back, then this card is pretty good. But I don't think you necessarily want to have him in your opening hand, especially if you know you're going to be up against a deck that's going to play pretty fast. Now for the king of unfair cards in 1v1. True name Nemesis. This thing is nuts. This thing is a 3/1 for 3 that lets you essentially choose a player, and then they can't do anything to this card. And since this is a 1v1 format, This is pretty much a hexproof, unblockable 3/1 that can't take any damage. It's not to say it's completely invulnerable. There are ways of getting rid of this thing. Say if this is my only creature and I am targeted by something like a Diabolic Edict, which makes me sacrifice a creature, that would still get rid of it. Or you could play something that gives all creatures -X/-X, or at least even -1/-1 would still kill it. Legacy decks run Engineered Plague, naming Merfolk just to get rid of this thing. Yeah. I believe this card is in French, but I'm just going to read it as if it was an English one. This is Sower of Temptation. 2/2 flyer, when you play it, you get control of one of your opponent's creatures, or you actually gain control of any creature. Just, why would you choose one of your own? You already control it. I mean, for 4 mana, this goes a long way. Depends on what the opponent has on their field. Dark Confidant. I like to have a lot of card advantage whenever I can. I mean, you can have a lot of mana, but if you're running short on cards, especially if you keep hitting lands, you're not really going to go anywhere. Especially if the opponent is on a roll. So that's why I want to have ways to get good card advantage, like this guy. As I said earlier, most of his deck consists of spells that cost 3 mana or less, so you shouldn't have to worry about losing too much life from this guy's effect unless you get really unlucky. But even if you go to like a dangerously low life total, if you can still kill the opponent, it's all good. Like, as long as you don't go to 0 life from this guy, like, you should be alright. Mesmeric Fiend. I don't know how much else I need to say here, but this guy just takes one of your opponent's cards from his or her hand while it's on the field, and when it leaves, they get their card back. I mean, it also gives you the added bonus of getting to see what's in the opponent's hand. Moving on, Trigon Predator. Part of me is not too excited about having the card in here because it lands as a 2/3 flyer, sure, but it kind of has to sit around for a turn and survive. But it can easily hit the opponent because it has like a good type of evasion as flying, so if they don't have any flyers or something with reach, you're going to hit them. And if they have an artifact or enchantment, you can just blow it up. And you could do this every time it lands a hit. I mean, usually it'd be only once per turn, unless you found a way to give it double strike, but then that gets even more fun. And this is the other guy I was talking about earlier. The other elf from Trest, from Paliano, from the Conspiracy sets. This was from like the last Conspiracy set before Take the Crown. Edric Spymaster Trest. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller draws a card. Notice how it's worded in such a way that even your opponents can draw cards off of Edric, so long as they attack someone other than you to land combat damage. But in 1v1, this card might as well just say, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to your opponent, draw a card. Because there's only one opponent to hit. Not to mention, he himself can just swing if there's nothing on the board and start getting you cards. I'm not exactly excited about having this card because it kind of has to sit around for a turn again. It costs 4 mana. But I have another card in here which makes me want to run it. Tree of Perdition. I'll go over this when I hit the Toxic Deluge. Okay, I've gone through all the creatures. Now I'm going to talk about my instants and sorceries. Preordain, card advantage. You strike 2, look at the top 2, put any of them on top or bottom, then draw a card. Ancestral Vision. To believe I picked this up for $6, and then it got unbanned in Modern. Profit. So this is pretty much Ancestral Recall. You pay 1 blue mana to draw 3 cards, except it's not instant speed, and you gotta wait 4 turns, but it's still well worth it, especially if this is like in your opening hand and you play it first turn. You're definitely going... you should last long enough to get those 3 cards. Like, if you can't, then I think something's wrong with the opponent's deck. I think it's like way too good. Brainstorm. More card advantage. Draw 3 cards and put 2 back on top. Not to mention that I can have many ways of shuffling the library, so I could just take 2 cards that I don't want to have at all in my hand, put them on top, then shuffle the library somehow, and just get rid of those. And then get to see like 2 new cards. Yeah. This plus the fetch lands, it's amazing. Skeletal Scrying. I mean, the cost on this card is pretty steep. You have to pay X mana. So let's say, like, you have 4 mana. No, 5. You're going to spend 1 on the black and then 4 on the X part. You actually have to take 4 cards out of your graveyard as well and put them aside, exile them. I mean, in a deck like this, it shouldn't be too hard. And then you lose X life, so you get rid of 4 cards in your graveyard, you pay 5 mana, 4 plus 1. You lose 4 life, but you draw 4 cards. I mean, life total really doesn't matter that much as long as you can kill the opponent, and cards in your graveyard, if you have them and you're not going to go and use them again, then might as well exile them. So those costs are very little, and you're getting like 4 cards, so that's like huge. And this is instant speed, so you can Skeletal Scrying into a counterspell, and if you can get a counterspell, and then use that too. Now I want to actually take time to talk about Leovold himself, because I have Days Undoing here. I have not put this in any other deck, and I probably wouldn't. I mean, it is nice to just refill your hand, but your opponent gets to do the same. But remember when Leovold said, like, the opponent can't draw more than 1 card per turn? This is why this card is in here. So you play it, and then each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into their library to draw a whole new hand of 7. But if Leovold's out, the opponent only gets to draw a whole new hand of 1. And the earlier you can get this, the better. Especially if they haven't developed the board yet, but in the fast-paced format, they probably are going to have some cards on the board by, say, turn 3. And in a similar flavor, Windfall. Each player discards their hand and draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards that were discarded by a single player. Again, let's say your opponent has like a hand of 5 or... Okay, let's say they have a hand of 5 and you play this. You chuck your hand and draw like 5 new cards, and they get stuck with 1. And of course, a deck like this has to have counterspells because it's plain blue. Because either blue or green is like the best color in Duel Commander. Blue because it gives you all these cheap counterspells, so you often always make a good trade with your opponent. And green has all those mana dorks, so you can easily ramp like a few turns ahead, like I said already. Like putting Leovold on turn 2. Mana Leak. Deprive. A counterspell that you actually have to bounce a land to use, but I got the strictly better counterspell as well. Just straight up counter target spell. That's right, it counters target spell. You cannot counter the counterspell, it does not come off the stack. Actually, any other counterspell can counter this, so yeah. Unless it says explicitly that it can't be countered, then you can counter the counterspell. Spell Snare. Well, let me just say it again, this is not a multiplayer deck list. If I was showing you a multiplayer deck list, Spell Snare would be substituted for something like, say, a Hinder or maybe even a Desertion. I mean, in the more fast-paced format like Duel Commander, there are going to be more key cards that are flying around with converted mana cost 2. Like Numazawa's Jite, other counterspells. There are a lot of things you will want to be able to hit with this Spell Snare, so yeah. But then are often times that they play stuff that costs like 1, 3, or even more than that, and then this just sits in your hand as a dead draw. Miscalculation. Very similar to Mana Leak. Spell Pierce. Condescend. And now for some removal spells. Go for the Throat. 2 mana, destroy target non-artifact creature. Dismember? You could actually just pay 1 single mana, doesn't matter what color, and 4 life to use this thing, and more than likely just kill whatever you target with, because the thing gets -5, -5. I mean, if its toughness is 5 or less, that's just going to kill it straight away. Just in case you need to kill something that is not a creature, Putrefy. You have the added bonus to be able to choose an artifact if you want to destroy that instead. But here's an even more flexible kill spell. Abrupt Decay. This thing can target non-land permanents and cost 2 mana, and it can't be countered. This seems like the dream package for a removal spell, but it can only target stuff with converted mana cost 3 or less. But as I said earlier, in Duel Commander, most of the time spells are going to cost 3 or less mana. There are so many targets you're going to want to hit with this. Say one of the 3-mana commanders, those probably appear frequently enough. The swords, say Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Feast and Famine, Umezawa's Jite, a Detention Sphere, an Oblivion Ring. So many things you'll want to be able to hit with this that you can. And it can't be countered. Far and Away. This is a neat little split card here. So on one end it says you can just put a creature in its owner's hand, and then on the other end you can make target player sack a creature. But if you use both halves together, it's going to cost you 5 mana and all, but you can put a creature into the opponent's hand, and then make that person sacrifice a creature, which only happens after the creature that you target with far is put into their hand. So if they have like 2 creatures, you can bounce the smaller one, and then make them sacrifice their bigger one. And now for mass removal, like Languish. I mean, Damnation would be better, but I don't feel like it's necessary to shell out 70, no, probably even more than that, dollars for a Black Wrath. They really should reprint that. And, okay, Toxic Deluge. This is just also one of the best removal spells in this format right now. Because again, you have to pay life, but you get to play like a board wipe at 3 mana. How is this not good? And if I haven't said it already, I'm going to bring Tree of Perdition back into this. This and Toxic Deluge combo. So with the Tree of Perdition out, you can play Toxic Deluge, and then say, pay 12 life. Everything gets -12/-12 for the turn. The Tree of Perdition will probably be the only thing that survives in like 99% of cases, but it'll have 1 toughness. You tap this card to exchange target opponent's life total with this thing's toughness. And I have this card which you could just pay 12 life to drop its 13 toughness to 1, tap this, take whatever life total they had to put it here, and then they have 1 point of life. And the next thing that does damage to them kills them. It's even better if they have a Phyrexian Arena or a Dark Confidant out at the same time you do. Then again, like the Dark Confidant would have died. More sorter removal, Cyclonic Rift. The fact that you could overload this and really set the opponent back is just another reason to run this. You gotta have some artifact or enchantment removal. Nature's Claim. Just going to point out that this costs... I can't hold it in such a way that you see the mana cost of it for the life of me. 1 mana, but they gain 4 life. I could just run Natural Lives, which costs 1 generic more, but they won't gain the life. But I play Duel Commander, and I generally want to be able to do things for as little mana as possible. They gain life, but if you can maintain a solid board state and they can't, you're still going to win. 4 life's probably not going to change anything. Thoughtseize, which can take a card out of their hand, will non-land card, but you lose 2 life. Perhaps one of the best of them all, Demonic Tutor. For 2 mana, get any card in your library. In a similar vein, Tainted Pact. Except you have to start at the top card of your library and exile everything until you take a card that you want. Or you hit 2 cards of the same name. But in the singleton format like Commander, it's not likely to happen. The only possibility of you getting 2 cards of the same name would be basic lands. And I've actually built the deck in such a way that it's minimized to it can barely even happen at all. Bring to Light, another tutor. I'll very easily be able to just play this with 3 colors of mana, so I'll be able to search my library for an instant sorcery or creature card converting mana cost 3 or less and just cast it. I get a removal spell. I could get one of my effects that just make people ditch their hand and draw a new one with Leovold out, and then boom, their hand's gone. Or I could get Edric Spymaster Trest to just go for card advantage. I mean, there's a lot you can do with this, that's why it's here. Bitter Blossom. Just makes Fairy Rogue tokens, you lose 1 life a turn, but the trade's well worth it. And this can come out turn 2, so you can start building your army very early in the game. Phyrexian Arena. Each turn you draw an extra card, but you lose 1 life. But still, you get to draw 2 cards a turn. think this is even better. Sylvan Library. For only 2 mana, once you got this on the field, you get to rearrange the top 3 cards of your library however you want each turn. You could actually, like, take up to 2 of the extra cards you've looked at, but for each of the extra cards you take, you lose 4 life. So you could take 3 cards a turn, but you'll be losing 8 life. As I said earlier, like, life total is not that big of a deal. Like, if you can kill them, like, go through as much life as you need to. And also, there are, like, fetch lands in here that I can just shuffle the library with to make this even better. Like, if I see cards I don't want, I can just shuffle them away if I have a fetch land, or say anything else that lets me shuffle the library. Yep, I got him. I have a Jace the Mind Sculptor here. And I have, like, the other best planeswalker in the game, Liliana of the Veil. I kind of want to just blaze through the rest of this deck list because 27 minutes, wow. Not to mention, she actually has some good synergy with Leovold once you knock your opponent's hand size down to, say, like 1 or 2. Once she starts making them discard cards, then they're going to have even more trouble keeping up. I mean, there's one land in here that also interacts with Leovold, and then you're also going to see an artifact that does the same. Good equipment. A Sword of Feast and Famine and Numazawa's Jite. I mean, if you play Dual Commander, I don't think I should have to explain these. Or even just regular Commander. Those probably appear there too. Birthing Pod. I mean, if I want to get a certain creature at a certain time, then this can do it. I mean, I just need to have the right thing out. Because I can only search for something with a converted mana cost equal to whatever is sacrificed plus 1. I mean, there are many creature cards that you will want to have one time or another. So this can just search them out for you. And it can be done like each turn. It's not a one-time thing. That's why I have it here. Okay, this card I'm actually going to have to explain because you don't see it as often as some of my other cards. Anvil of Bogarden. There's no maximum hand sizes. And at the beginning of each turn, that player draws an additional card but discards a card. But yeah, keep in mind I play Leovold, so if I have him out, it pretty much becomes the opponent only draws 1 card at their draw step, but they still discard a card, so they're not going to be like getting their hand size any bigger while this and Leovold are both out. This serves a similar purpose. Teferi's Puzzle Box. At the beginning of each turn, the player counts the number of cards in their hands, put them on the bottom of the library, and then draws a new hand of however many cards they put on the bottom. So each turn, the player just gets a new hand, and then they draw their draw phase card. But of course, I have Leovold, so I could just make them draw only 1 card. I used to be running Font of Mythos in this deck, which says each player draws 2 additional cards at each draw step. But I ditched that because I kind of have to wait till my next turn to start getting the advantage of the Font of Mythos, while this disrupts your opponent as soon as their draw step comes around, so they have less time to answer to this. Sure, it will probably be a lot less friendly in a multiplayer game, and you'd probably be better running off Font of Mythos, but I kind of want to make it as tough for the opponent as possible, so I'd rather run this over the font. The font isn't actually hurting them if Leovold's out, it's not helping them. But this actually does get in their way. And they have like a lot less time to react to it. They don't have a full turn. And now we're just going to go through the lands quickly, like 3 forests, one which is snow covered. 2 islands. 3 swamps. One of those is snow covered, so two cards named Swamp and 2 cards named Forest. Those are all my basic lands. Yes, that's what I do for Tainted Pact. 5, 6, 7, 8 fetch lands. All the fetch lands I could run in here, except for Scalding Tarn and Arid Mesa, because that gets mountains and plains, which I don't have any of, because this is Leovold. This is blue, black, green. All of these cards are capable of just getting one of the shock lands, which will be crucial in getting a turn to Leovold out, and shuffling the library, which makes cards like Brainstorm, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Sylvan Library that much better. So just get rid of cards you don't want or don't need. And here are the Shocklands: Breeding Pool, Overgrown Tomb, and Watery Grave. I mean, I like to get one of those out with one of my fetch lands. I mean, it's worth it to life to have it coming untapped, because if I just use that, play one of my elves, and play another land that comes in untapped, turn to Leovold. The Pain lands. 2 of the check lands from Innistrad: Woodland Cemetery and Hinterland Harbor. The Tangle land from Battle for Zendikar that I can run in here, Sunken Hollow, because this cycle only exists for the allied bicolor lands. Tainted Wood and Tainted Isle. These make 2 colors of mana. Do not come into play tapped, but can only make the colored mana if you have a swamp out. But again, I play fetch land, so if I hit one of those, I can just fetch for a swamp and I'm good. Unless they blow it up. City of Brass and Mana Confluence, because they're so identical in function. Except this one actually is strictly better. Because if someone could just tap this land with an ability each turn, you'll still get drained for the 1 life per turn. Command Tower. If you're not running Command Tower in EDH, something is probably wrong with you, or you're playing a monocolored deck. Reflecting Pool. Cavern of Souls. This is... Let me just get a... This is Korean. I know, I said the magic word, Korean. So essentially when you play this, you get to choose a creature type. I will probably choose Elf because my general is an Elf. This taps for colorless mana, but also, if you're playing an Elf creature spell, okay, I just named Elf. If you're playing a creature spell of a certain type that you named, you get to add 1 mana of any color, and then that creature spell can't be countered, which is like a huge bonus in a format that's particularly notorious for having a lot of counterspell decks running around. I even see decks with like 2 to 3 other creatures besides their commander that play this, simply for the sake of having an uncounterable commander. It's just so worth it. I mean, if you can get your hands on one of these, do it. Treetop Village. Manland. Makes green, comes in tap, it can turn into an ape. The other manland I have. Creeping Tar Pit, this one's even better. That's for 2 kinds of mana. We have a 3/2 unblockable. Tech Edge. Destroy their lands if I need to get rid of one. Wasteland. Also can destroy lands if I need to get rid of one. Yeah, Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Another card that you probably won't see too often. Each player draws and discards a card for 2 mana, and you have to tap the land itself, so you'll want to have 3 untapped lands to use this. But again, Leovold. I usually just, once I have Leovold out, I play this ability after they've drawn their first card for the turn, so then they'll have to discard a card, but they won't draw an extra one, because Leovold can't. Leovold prevents them from drawing again. But I get to draw and discard, so I get to loot, and, like, they get stuck. If they have 0 cards in their hand, and then they draw their card for the turn, and it's not an instant, I just make them discard it before they can ever play it. And finally, a Cephalid Colosseum. Which actually now has more than 1 use in this kind of deck. I mean, once you get 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can use the Threshold and make someone draw and then discard 3 cards. I mean, I could just use, like, the extra cards myself. I just need to get, like, an answer in the next 3 cards, but I could use this on the opponent if I have my general out, and then just straight up discard 3 cards. Like, if they did their draw step to their 3rd card in their hand, like, I could just play this and they lose their hand. I kind of do want to do another video soon enough about Leovold, if he's going to get banned or not. Because there's a lot to talk about, so yeah, see you.